Andy, I don't even know what a rubber band man is. Is it a
I'm surprised
man
you
made
didn't.
of rubber bands?
I think it is a man who is double jointed and can dance in a way that would make people giddy and filled with glee.
That's
That's
the
how I always
actual
look
thing?
at it.
Huh. That sounds actually correct. Hey,
I'm
welcome everybody to
surprised.
Off Day.
I'm
It's
surprised
off.
you didn't open with "When Irish Eyes Are Crying."
Oh, well, yes, we're getting to that right away, actually. Welcome, everybody. It's Off Day with Ballpark Nation. Got a fun episode today because we're diving into the winter meetings for the lion's share of it. But we got to talk a little bit of college football, and I want to talk a lot of the college football playoff, Andy, but I want to talk mostly right now about the Notre Dame decision to decide to not play the bowl game. And here's the thing. I understand that the story coming out of South Bend is that the team voted on it and they decided not to play. Well, first of all, as an educator, if you're definitely going to be relying on the moods of emotional 18 to 21-year-olds to make, that's why you have adults in the room. But also,
I mean,
it's a real slap in the face. Like I was thinking about you and I when this decision happened, because for as much as we can have a rough season, the last game of our team always sucks. We always talk about that. Like, even if you go out and lose, at least it's one more Astros game you got to watch before the void. Your headline is referencing the void right now.
absolutely.
They just did a middle finger to every single Notre Dame fan, of which it is probably one of the three largest fan bases in college football. And they just kind of went, ask for forgiveness. The Irish pulled out, Andy. The Irish
Yeah.
pulled out.
Well, they did it in a particular rhythm that makes it disconcerting. I wish there was some method to their madness. See what I did there?
I do.
Anyway, I'm of two minds of this. I do understand the decision. I don't agree with the decision. I think it is harmful for both the Notre Dame brand to some extent. And I know there's people online right now because I saw it yesterday while I was flying up here who are, oh yeah, screw the ESPN. We're not going to give them money by playing one of their bowl games and da da da. It's short sighted from a couple of things. You're really putting the death knell in the bowl system. And there may be a season where you actually want to play in a bowl. And if there aren't bowls to play, we're then in this world where it's just playoff games. So it's just going to be 12 teams or 16 teams or whatever that final number ends up being that get to participate in any kind of postseason. I don't think that's good for the sport. I don't think it's good for the schools. I don't think it's good for college athletics as a whole, where we still have at least this pretend line of having student athletes. It was a capricious and not entirely arbitrary, but emotional decision that I think they really should rethink. And I know it's too late to do that, but I don't agree with it. I
I
think
put
it's
some of
I
it.
don't even care if the team voted for it, frankly, because to your point, 18 to 22-year-olds are notoriously emotional, and it smacked very much of a I'm going to take my ball and go home if you don't let me play. But I also think there are people on that team who thought they were going to have at least one more go at putting on that uniform and playing one more time for the Irish, and that was taken away from them. So whether you thought it was a playoff game or whether it was going to be a bowl game, Pop-Tart Bowl, I guess is what they were being invited to, you have guys on that team who are never, ever, ever going to put on pads again, put on a helmet again, pick up a football again, who had that last opportunity to play taken away based on a team vote, which just seems weird to
Yeah,
me.
a team vote taken immediately after the selection show finished, when they were
Yeah.
at their most. Not I mean, we're a Catholic school. Go home, pray on it, come back tomorrow,
Discern is a thing.
make a decision. I do think it's also kind of messed up because it's on a system Notre Dame voted for. But I will say this: I do think that the committee has a little bit of culpability here, because for weeks they have ranked Notre Dame ahead of Miami, even though they shouldn't have. And when asked, the committee chair said, well, we'll get to that part when it matters. Right now, neither of them are in, so it doesn't matter. Well, that's stupid. You should be able to imagine scenarios in which it does matter. So I can understand an emotional reaction of being leapfrogged 5 days, from Tuesday to Sunday being leapfrogged without having anything haven't had happen. Like Notre Dame never should have been ahead of Miami in the first place. This would have made things easier.
I find in 2025, I've had to use the reference to a wretched hive of scum and villainy to apply to a lot of and I don't want to beat that horse so much, but realistically, it should apply to the playoff selection committee, because I can't imagine a group that has been more incompetent, more inconsistent, more obstinate about doing things their own way rather than the way they said they were going to do them prior to the season. It has taken a lot of the fun for a lot of the fan bases out. And I know if you're Alabama right now, you're happy that it worked out for you, but it almost didn't. And you'd be on the same boat as you were last year looking in. And you can make the argument that they should be on the outside looking in. Miami,
part of their criteria on the committee is how you're playing at the time of the decision. And they're not playing good football right now.
And I have a problem with that because there are ebbs and flows in the course of even a 15-game season. The talent is there. And I do understand the argument with Florida State in a 4-team playoff a couple of years ago being eliminated because they lost their starting quarterback. I didn't agree with it, but I at least understand it. But they don't apply that same logic. You can't tell me that Ole Miss deserves to not drop at all, losing their entire coaching staff.
Yeah. I mean,
because that's going to make a difference in that game. They're not going to lose.
There's a good chance you, me, and our guests are going to be coaching Ole Miss in the playoff. I mean, I don't even know if they figured it out yet, so we'll see.
Well, they've allowed their OC to come back or leave LSU for a couple of weeks to play I mean, it's all very, very convoluted, and this is a bigger problem because the NCAA just can't seem to fix their calendar when it comes to college football. So you have coaches that are having to leave, but then come back and coach in a lame duck status for a team that may or may not care to play for that coach anymore. And I know all the teams that are affected by this are giving the right lip service, but there are kids who absolutely base their decisions on the coach and not the school. And if the coach is a free agent at literally the end of every season, it's just going to further erode the product that is college football.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I want to do a big deep dive into this on Friday, but I do want to do a shout out to Steve Sarkisian, who I think handled the entire thing in his press conference with class and integrity, and excited to go play the Citrus Bowl. It's a good bowl to go play. You're going to go play Michigan. And I appreciated the fact that because he kind of kept being asked to restate his case in his press conference. And he kind of just said, I made my case. They didn't listen. So now let's go play a good bowl game and have a good time. So
I'll say this, Texas fans. I know you're upset with how the season played out, but the last time you played Michigan in a bowl game, the next year something good happened.
Although I don't think Dusty Mangum and Vince Young are walking out, but that was a pretty sweet year. But it's an exciting time in the baseball calendar. So we're welcome one of my very good friends, filmmaker, Astros fan, baseball expert, Michael Charron is joining us. It's winter meetings, guys. I've covered the winter meetings with Let's Get To You. It was so much fun. And Michael, Andy and I talk a lot about the pearl clutching of Astros fans over every little signing, but this is really when it starts. The off-season calendar. What are some of the things, talking to you guys, we'll talk with Michael first, guest first, that you think you need to see coming out of these next 4 days or 3 days to feel like, okay, the off season's in the right track? Or do you need to see anything with the way the calendar is moving?
Yeah, I think one more established starting pitcher, right? Like I think they've signed a couple of interesting guys to see where they go, right? But you've got to have someone that behind Hunter Brown that you can trust is going to do a good job, right? And I don't think they have anyone right now. That's what I'm really looking to see.
And do you feel like we need to get that through the meetings, or do you feel like it's weird because I don't know if it's a free agent or is it a trade? It's a trade, right?
Well, you look at what's been spent so far on some of these free agents, and they're not going to spend that, right? Like even Cody Ponce getting $30 million, and they didn't go $30 million in 3 years. They're not going to go higher than that.
Andy?
Oh, I think they will. His name's Justin Verlander, but he's not the center. He's not the centerpiece of what should be happening. I think it is a trade. I don't think it has to happen by the end of the winter meetings because baseball has no timeline on these things. outside of you'd like guys there by the time spring training opens up. That's kind of it. But even that's not a hard and fast rule for anything. What needs to happen this week at the winter meetings is the groundwork for those conversations needs to be laid. And if a deal can be had, great. If you're looking at Pirates started pitching or somebody off the Reds or somebody, there's been a bunch of names attached to the Astros. I don't know how real any of that is because the sources are kind of all over the place. But there is not a world where we were going to sign Dylan Cease for $210 million.
And I'm glad.
Yeah. No.
But as an example, Michael King, I guess, is the next one people think we're going to try to sign. We're not going to spend in that atmosphere. We don't have that kind of room. And it's not that Jim Crane is cheap. It's that we don't allocate our resources well, which is a whole different conversation. But we do still spend money. But we are suffering, if you want to use that term, from the idea that Jose Altuve is going to finish his career in Houston, which I'm not mad about, but it does have ramifications on what our payroll looks like. And there are other players on this team. Reacquiring Carlos Correa was a real feel-good story, but it does affect our ability to do other things this offseason.
Michael, how do you square the fact that, and so much of our show has become really a commentary on other Astros fans. It's really less about the Astros than anything. But I just, this commentary that Jim Crane is cheap just wears me out. I mean, what's your take on that?
No, I mean, we're typically in the top 5 payrolls. Like or in that range. Like it's not cheap. I think that, I mean, honestly, it's frustrating sometimes as a fan because you're like, oh, I want that big signing. It's going to be that, whether it's Dylan Cease or someone that's going to be like, we have this guy, but also 7 years on a pitcher right now. Like, look at what happened to our pitching staff last year. Like if you put 7 years on a guy and then, I mean, almost like look at Lance McCullers, right? Like look at how that works out when you put a long deal on a pitcher. And I know why the pitchers want it because they're looking at the same thing. Like, if I get injured next year and I don't have a contract, but like the team, I think he's smart in how he doesn't give those long deals.
I mean, Christian Javier is another one of those guys. Right. And I want to buy big on Christian Javier every year. And in a good world, he is a number 2 in this rotation, but I don't think you can count on him. Back to our original point, there has to be somebody else coming from the outside who can take it, is somebody who throws a lot of innings. And I know I'm about to describe Framber Valdez, not him. But can throw a lot of innings, is durable, will make his starts, and can stop a losing streak. Yep. That's the profile. It doesn't have to be a Dylan Cease. It doesn't have to be a Michael King, but it needs to be somebody with that potential. Otherwise, well, not even otherwise, we're going to walk into camp with like 25 starting pitchers and maybe have one that we know that we can count on.
Right.
Yeah. And these signings, Michael, like when I see them, it's so weird to me because I believe in the Astros pitching lab. And so to me, I'm just assuming that they are seeing something in these guys that the numbers don't show me.
Yeah, I mean, look at what they did with Jason Alexander this year, right? Like he got DFA, right? But like, he wasn't like, a number 1 or 2 starter, but like he did a really great job for most of the season that he was out there, right? And he was a guy who got let go early in the season, and so I do believe they can do something with these guys, and I hope so. I just want to see someone that you can count on, right? Is going to show up and eat all this. I mean, but again, that's what Hayden Westesky was this past season, and look what happened. 2 months in, he went down. I don't even think it was 2 months, right?
No, I don't think it was 2 months. Yeah, I think
it's like
he had like 5 starts, maybe.
4 or 5.
He was that guy. You're like, he's going to show up and he's going to eat a lot of innings, and didn't. So,
yeah, and I think I will say this to y'all's point as well. The Astros pitching lab, at some point, luck runs out, and so sometimes it would be nice to be able to say, and I don't think we're trading for Scooble or whatever, but it'd be nice to have a dude like that to be like, okay, Hunter Brown. I mean, just like go back to the 19 Astros or 2022 Astros when we had those dudes from top to bottom. And I get that that is what the standard has been.
Right.
On a scale of the Backstreet Boys breaking up to Brad Pitt getting old, how sad is Jessica going to be if Jake Myers is not on this team next year? And will Jake Myers be on the team? Andy, we'll start with you. Is he getting traded?
I'm pretty sure, and it's realistically, I said things don't have to happen at the winter meetings, but I think he is the first domino to fall to free up some of the payroll that you need He's also one of the more desired assets on the Astros roster that is available. And I guess we live in this world where everybody's available who's not named Alvarez or Altuve. But realistic trade candidates, Myers is probably the top of the list, and there is demand for a guy who can be adequate with a bat. And that's me selling real high on Jake Myers because I've not ever felt he's, besides this year, been adequate with a bat, but is a plus center fielder defensively. And there are a lot of teams that need that sort of thing. So I think that I would love to see something along the lines, not from a caliber of player, but from a number of players thing with what happened with Kyle Tucker in the offseason. Finding somebody where you get a major league ready player, hopefully a pitcher, and then a almost ready for major league type prospect. And maybe that's a AA guy that's a year away, but I'd like to see like a 2-for-1 for Myers. And I might be, dreaming about that, overestimating his value a little bit, but that's what, if Dana Brown needs to start restocking, or needs to continue to restock the minor leagues, that's what has to happen next, is we have to start getting more players back for what we're shuffling off.
Yeah, Michael, what do you think on that, man?
I mean, I think same thing. He's the only, like, there's a couple guys that they probably need to trade or do something with, but like he's the only one that has the kind of, cachet they need right now to get something. I think maybe getting 2 players back, I mean, unless it's a AA guy as one of them, right, is kind of high value, but I mean, no one's going to give you a couple guys for Jesus Sanchez, right? This is your one like real trade piece that you think you can get rid of.
Well, how cool would that be?
Right. I mean, that would be awesome if you could trick someone into that. But
yeah, I want to ask you, Michael, then about, because something that Andy and I started talking about. It was a throwaway line that Dana Brown had in a press conference that kind of concerned both Andy and I. And I wanted your take on this, and that was basically not guaranteeing Cam Smith a job in spring training. And to me, that felt like a weird thing to say out loud to someone that you just threw out there and said, go fail or succeed. It seems weird, because doesn't Cam Smith have to be a success for this Kyle Tucker trade to have been worth the trade?
Yeah, I mean, I think 2 things there. I think one, it was a little bit of a like, you've got to get get it together, right, by next year to him. And I think also, I don't think that there's like he's going down and he's never coming back up, right? I think they're just wanting to see. I mean, because you saw flashes of brilliance this year, right?
Sure.
Like that. What was it, end of May, early June, when he moved in the cleanup spot and he had more RBIs in 10 games than Christian Walker had in 2 months, right? And like you saw those moments where he was great. I mean, he'd never played right field and was a Gold Glove finalist, right? So I think he's got it. He's just got to get it together in the offseason to figure out that, to maintain it a whole season.
Yeah, I guess for me, guys, I felt that it was a weird thing to say out loud. I would have said it to him personally. To me, that's the kind of thing that could shake a rookie, in my opinion.
Well, it was weird for me because he being Dana Brown, spent the entire season telling us what a hard worker was. And it wasn't just Dana Brown, it's Joe Espada, his coaching staff, but what a hard worker Cam Smith was, how he said the right things, did the right things, carried himself like a pro, like a veteran. And now we're challenging him in the media to get better for reasons. We all know that he needs to get better. We also all know that this was the first season he played more than 100 games total at any level ever.
Yeah.
And he very clearly ran into a wall. And I think that more than anything is what happened post All-Star break with Cam Smith and his inability to just generate power, do anything outside of play defense consistently. That's a learning process. That's a growth process. That's when you pick a guy who hadn't played above AA, you hope that he gets some time to mature and season in the minor leagues before you stick him out in right field for what is supposed to be a playoff contending team. I think Cam Smith acquitted himself very well. The issue with Cam Smith was a Jesus Sanchez problem, because the plan was to platoon those 2 guys.
Yeah.
And neither one of them could hit towards the end of the year. So it just didn't work. It wasn't a lack of trying. It just didn't work. But I don't know why you put all that on Cam Smith.
Is Cam Smith an option in center field if they do trade Jake Myers? Michael, for you first, do you think?
I mean, they talked about, they trained him there a little bit, but I mean, maybe he's good, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you've got
He's young, he's athletic.
Right. He's really fast, and he picked up right field incredibly fast. You got two other guys, though, that have both played center field this past year, and we'll see, what they can do. But I don't know that they know for sure. It depends on what they get back for Jake Myers, right?
We have a log jam and go ahead, Andy. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I know one of the guys Michael's referring to is Zach Cole, and I know people are excited about him. I'm still waiting to see a little bit with that, because I'm an old enough fan of this franchise to remember J.R. Towles, because I think he holds the single game RBI record for the Houston Astros. At least he did for a while. Do you remember J.R. Towles? No, you don't. That's why I'm Zach Cole. Maybe it's going to be great. Maybe it's going to work out. I think you also have to find out what you're doing with Jacob Melton at this point, because one of those two guys, if you're trading Jake Myers, has to be your center fielder, barring some other addition, because there is nobody else in the organization.
Yeah. One of the big issues right now, too, is, and I do think we have to, first of all, I think we have to move past, and I think we've moved past the whole idea that Walker is Abreu 2.0. Walker was much better in the second half. But we do have a pretty unathletic log jam potential log jam on the right side of the infield. Altuve is not a good defensive second baseman anymore. Where do you play Paredes and Christian Walker? I don't see how Walker and Paredes can both be on the team next year. But the only one you could move, I would think, Michael, is the one I don't want to move. Like Paredes is the one I would want to keep. Yeah,
I mean, you're going to, if you get rid of Walker, you're going to lose money, right? No one's going to take on that full contract, right? And so that's the problem there. But yeah, Paredes is like, he'd wanted, Dana Brown had wanted him for a while, and his profile is so great for that field, and he's awesome. Like he is the only guy that, there was one game last year I remember where there was like in 6 innings he'd hit he had taken 30 pitches, right? So it was crazy. Like this is the only guy who was doing that. So I don't know how you move anyone else, but he's the one I definitely want to keep. I don't know where you put him though.
I think go ahead, Michael. Andy.
It's the mystery that we all have, because I don't know what you do with this current configuration of players. You've got, last time I counted, five guys who could play third base for one third base position. You got to find a second baseman between a guy who literally shouldn't be playing second base anymore, no matter how warm and fuzzy we feel about him, and a guy who, if it's Paredes, doesn't play that position well. So again, which defensive thing are you give up? Part of the reason the Astros were able to stay in the race with the amount of injuries they had is because they limited runs that the other team could score, because they had very, very good infield defense. That goes away with either Paredes or Altuve at second base every day. And that's part of the struggles you saw in the latter part of the year, just winning games, is that Altuve had to play second base every day. But now you've got a log jam in left field because Alvarez has to play every day somewhere.
That's the thing, and nobody wants to hear this. But we actually
have
have
Zach DeCenzo still on the roster, taking up a 40-man spot, who is also supposed to be a left fielder at this point.
Yeah. Well, but the problem, what we really have is we have a Yordan Alvarez problem. A guy that age should not be your full-time DH. The full-time DH should be Jose Altuve, but because and look, I don't want to call Alvarez injury prone, but he does, like, he's got bad knees for guys that are really bad knees for a guy that's that young. And yeah, the injury he had this last year was a freak injury, right? But the reality is, all of us hold our breath when he runs out to left field. And so that, I think, is one of the big handcuffs to this team, is the fact that the guy that should be playing DH can't play DH because the guys playing DH were afraid to let him play anywhere else.
Well, I mean, and that's the problem with Alvarez, is you don't want to call him injury prone, and you can call him unlucky or whatever you want to call him, but he's literally only played 145 games in a season once. That was in 2024. So he's been in the major leagues for a while, and he can't seem to stay healthy for an entire season. And maybe that's part of the calculus the Astros have, is we count on him for 120 days or 120 games. But you can't build a roster with a bunch of 120-day guys. You've got to have guys who are your regular lineup guys. The amount of injuries the Astros had last year were absurd, and
yeah, we're going to get to that. Yeah, I mean,
almost historic. But it hid some things, because I really hate to think that anybody in the front office is going, oh, if we're just healthy, it'll be fine, because there were other things going on when people were healthy. Walker didn't hit for an entire half season. Paredes only hits at home, and only if he can pull to the short porch. Altuve cratered August and September, which is one of the longest droughts in his career. And you have got to figure out, is that foretelling of anything else? Is this the beginning of the end, or was it a blip in the matrix? You also have to deal with the fact that this is a kind of a one-year team, because nobody knows what's happening in 2027.
Yeah. Let's take those two things in separation, because that's exactly where I wanted to get into. I know, Michael.
You're welcome.
I was very we call that a transition or a segue. But yeah, the tone, I think, of the show so far, Michael, has been pretty negative. But the reality is the Astros lost by 2 games to Seattle, with having by far the biggest biggest number of WAR on the injured list. So there is some idea that if the players are healthier, you can make other minor improvements, and all of a sudden you should be right back in the race for the division.
Right. Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely agree. I mean, you look at the loss. I mean, Alvarez, when he came back, was incredible there, right? And then again, injured again, right? And it's just it at the end of the season, I was talking to a friend of mine who's actually a Mariners fan, and I was just like, I'm just ready for the season to be over at this point, because the last couple of weeks, like when Alvarez went out again, and then you find out Altuve's playing on a broken foot or injured foot, sorry. And you've got, and Pena's out with the oblique strain. And I was just like, they just need to all just sleep for a while, right? Like, I feel so bad for them at that point. Like, they missed the playoffs by 1 game, right? Like, and it was like, but were they going to go any further? So yeah, I mean, I think if they can all stay healthy, it's an incredible team. The problem we were talking about is too many guys for the infield. It wasn't, it's how do you handle that, right? I think that if they can do that, that's great.
Yeah, I think, Andy, I think we have to recognize that both things can be true. You do need to be able to improve the team. Obviously, losing Dubon and Urias means you're going to have to find people that can fill in gaps. And I think this really is going to be the test of Dana Brown. And I don't know that Dana Brown, I think that our fan base is a little too tough on him, I think. But I do feel like not since the rebuild has there been as a offseason as consequential as the one that we're in now with the Astros.
Well, Dana Brown suffers from comparison, because Saint Jeff Lunau could do no wrong, even though he did plenty wrong. He did bring the city the first World Series, the championship that the franchise ever had. James Click took the talent that Lunau had assembled and pretty much didn't do a whole lot, if you look at the minor leagues especially, and was able to win another World Series. Dana Brown has had a negative progression of season records and postseason success. So by that metric, he has been disappointing, but I think he's had a different mission to deal with than those two guys did. One had to build, one had to maintain. This guy has to rebuild on the fly while keeping Jim Crane happy with the amount of wins they have. And it's tough to rebuild a farm system that was barren for a lot of reasons and keep winning at the major league level. Very few teams can do that. The Astros have been successful doing that. But I think he has built himself. He's been here. This is his 3rd year. So he's built a roster with Jim Crane's help in some extent, Carlos Correa, that has some challenges with the kind of personnel it has versus what they actually need. And I think it's going to take something that really shakes up the roster to right some of it. If they had another catching prospect, and I guess Walter Yannick is that guy, but they need to sign somebody else, Yainer Diaz could help restock that.
Yeah, and I think he should be traded.
Because I don't know that he gets any better, but even if he does, I think we need a left-handed outfield bat more than we need Yainer Diaz's 20 home runs a year.
And not ability to manage a pitching staff.
Yeah, and so maybe that frees up money to re-sign Caratini. Maybe that frees up money to sign somebody else. I don't know, but there's going to have to be something at some point, and I don't know if it's a season, that shifts this lineup from the 2022 leftovers to what it is now. And I know even saying that, there's not a lot of 2022 leftovers left, and the few that are here are going to be gone post haste. But this lineup has gotten old, it's gotten slow, and I'm worried that the litany of injuries that we've had for really 2 seasons isn't a sign of anything more than a team getting old.
Do you think that's it, Michael?
I mean, some of it, yeah. I mean, some of the injuries were not that. I mean, you look at Paredes and Myers, right? These guys are not. I mean, I guess they're not young, but they're not old, right? It's not Altuve, right? I think that I think Dana Brown's made some really good decisions, and some that I wonder about. His trade deadline this year really was questionable for me.
Really blew up in his face,
Yeah.
didn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
the Correa move is the only good move, and that wasn't his move.
That's definitely not his move, right? So that was where, because I think the Tucker trade, I love Tucker, but I think the Tucker trade was smart, and I was sad about it. I'm still sad that Mauricio Dubon, but I understand why, right? But that was the one question. So we'll see what he does the rest of this offseason. I think will kind of determine how I feel about him right now.
Okay, so let's go around the room real quick before we go into the whole work stoppage thing. I believe the entire 2027 season is getting wiped out. Andy, how much of the 2027 season do you think is getting wiped out?
Well, I think we'll be playing by the All-Star break, but this is going to start feeling at some point like our COVID predictions. Oh, I think they'll be back next week. Oh, I think they'll be back at the end of this month. I think they'll be certainly back by June 1st, because that's a TV.
I have a video of Julia Morales saying we'll be back by April to me directly. That was pretty funny. Michael, how long do you think we're going to be out?
I think All-Star break is about the earliest it's going to happen, if at all.
So it does change the math then. Like I'm shocked we're not going to just see. Like, I wouldn't be shocked to see Jim Crane empower Dana Brown to go give a bunch of short deals that are worth a lot of money and just say, let's go for it in 2026. I don't know. That seems to me what strategy should be, because the entire economic system is going to be different. Because I do think they're going to get the salary cap in. And like, I know people don't want to hear this, but we are all old enough to remember when Major League Baseball was the bigger game in town than the NFL. And what the NFL decided to do was become a product of itself, not a union of 30 teams, and they established a cap and a floor, and they negotiated everything as a group. And that is how they've become what they have. Even though the kickoff rules are stupid, it's still the biggest game, and they're stupid. But baseball, we want to talk about being, and this is, I think, Michael, both of you guys understand how this works. Baseball owners feel like they're doing better because they're making more money in TV revenue, and they're not ignoring the fact that that's only the case because TV is dying, and the only thing you can pay advertising for is sports and news. But it isn't like more people are actually watching baseball, because they're not. And to me, I think they will establish that cap. I think it goes through.
They're just so hateable, though. I get the economics of it, and I don't disagree.
I know.
With
baseball owners are the fucking worst.
But I don't disagree that it's probably what's going to happen. It's probably what needs to happen for the overall health of baseball. And I'm very pro-player on this conversation, but I do understand where the owner's coming from. But you've already started seeing, and I was in New York last week, the owner of the Yankees talking about how they lose money. And nobody in the world believes that the Yankees lose money.
No.
But this is the cry that the owners make every couple of years right before the CBA is about, we can't show you our books, but you'll have to trust us. All of us lose money every year. They spend the rest of the time complaining about the competitive balance tax, funding owners like Pittsburgh who don't try to win because they're now making money and do nothing to try to win. So both things can't be true. Either everybody's losing money at rapid clips, or all the owners are sitting fat and happy, and this is really just how you move your shells. And I think we're going to be all experiencing the shell moving, and the players are the ones who are eventually going to suffer, but even that's relative. Back to the Astros, though, I think that one of the things would be interesting if Jim Crane could get some assurance that he wouldn't be penalized for going over a CBT that won't exist in 2027. Maybe he does that. And, I think he's on the right committees as far as the owners go to probably suss that out. The fact that we are so busy cutting payroll right now tells me that he's not feeling that's a true thing right now.
I do believe, though, and I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier. I do believe that Jim Crane recognizes that the way for the Astros to be profitable is for the Astros to be winning. And I also, I mean, we've talked about this both privately. Well, Andy on the show, but you and I, Michael, privately, where he's made a lot of real estate investment around the ballpark. That us sliding into 100 loss seasons is not going to be good for his bottom line for what his long-term goal of building a ballpark village and building essentially the Battery in Atlanta downtown. Like that's what he wants to do. As an Astros fan, to me, that gives me enough trust to know that he's at least going to try to make an effort to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And to go back, I mean, I think that we do need to have a salary cap, but there has to be a salary floor. These teams
has to be a floor as well.
These teams that are not spending are, they need to sell or they need to spend, right? Like you look at what he's doing with the A's right now. You look at the Pirates. I mean, the Pirates, what they're doing to Paul Skeens by refusing to build a team right now is insane.
And not to cut you off, and you can continue after this, but what's frustrating about watching the Pirates and the Reds not spend is that traditionally those are two of the more storied franchises in the sport.
Right.
It's one thing the Rockies actually make a lot of money. They're still one of the top 10 most well-attended teams. And so don't talk to me about no money, but it's especially sad to see the Reds and the Pirates do this because traditionally they are powerhouses.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and it's just the owners right now are just milking everything they can out of the team and they're not worrying about the team. They don't care. They're not winning and they can still make money, right? Because people go, oh, it's the Pirates. I love the Pirates and people there go. And so I think that is really going to help the players though, if they put in a minimum on those type teams, right? You've got the teams that maybe can't spend $70 million a year anymore on a player, but I mean, do we need to spend $70 million a year on a player, right? Like,
like to me, both things can be true. The Pirates are the problem and the Dodgers are the problem.
Right.
Both things can be true at the same time. And of course you can't have that. Like, and when you try to bring that up to a Yankee fan or a Dodger fan, they are the equivalent of a rich guy telling a person you're poor because you don't have a job.
Right.
You don't want to acknowledge the fact that it's not as fair. It's not an equitable system where no other team but the Dodgers could afford to do what the Dodgers are doing.
Right. If you took the Dodgers spend like 75% of their revenue on payroll, right, last year. If you did the same thing with the Brewers, it would be $100 million less to spend. Right. So it's not, it's not like they even have, if they spent 75%, they still don't have that money to spend. And then the Dodgers are abusing the whole thing with the deferrals. Like that was put in place to give smaller market teams the ability to get bigger players. And yet the largest revenue team is the one who's using it.
Well, and Andy, you brought up a good point because they're the Dodgers are the only team that are not worried about selling their franchise. And you can't sell the franchise if you've got a shit ton of deferrals.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most teams aren't going to put future payroll on the books because anytime they want to put the team on the market, they are going to want to have the new owners are going to want to have a clean slate and not be beholden to a bunch of contracts for the next 20 years. I mean, the Mets sold even despite having to pay Bobby Bonilla every year for, I think, still 10 more years, something like that. But that's, a drop in the bucket to what kind of debt the Dodgers have on their ledger right now. And most teams can't afford to do that. And that's even with me saying they all make money. Most teams can't afford to have that kind of debt on their ledger based on how they're financed, their ownership groups, and all that kind of thing. It's very rare that it's one guy that just owns a team. Even Jim Crane is the face of a consortium of individuals. He's the majority.
Okay. How much of a majority is he? Do you know? Because I didn't realize that there was other owners.
I mean, every one of the major league franchises has minority investors. Okay. It's just the matter of who it is. Even when you talk about some of the more well-known, George W. Bush didn't own the Rangers. He was the face of the group that owns the Rangers. Tom Hicks, who passed away, I guess, was kind of similar in that respect. But there are very few. Just I'm George Steinbrenner. I own this team. That doesn't really exist anymore, just because of the nature of the finances. There's a lot of people who want to invest because guess what? These franchises make money.
Yeah.
So billionaires generally become billionaires because they make money. They may be evil and society doesn't need them and all that kind of stuff, but they do know how to make money. And I see them all trying to buy franchises or invest in franchises, which tells me there's money to be made. I think we're in for a really gross period, and I think it's going to look really ugly before it starts getting better. But I also think that putting a floor in, preventing teams like Minnesota from doing what they've done over the last 8 months, where you get an entire city to buy in and you look like you're trying to win, and then you pull the rug out.
Yeah.
And now even guys like Brian Buxton, who was very famously around the trade deadline last year, was saying, I'm so glad that I know I'm going to spend my entire career in Minnesota, because this is a franchise that's always going to try to win, and it's home. And then Carlos Correa gets traded, and then they trade the entire starting rotation to most of their bullpen. And then he's like, oh, I guess I can go too now.
Yeah.
It just erodes the faith that the public has in these institutions, because in Minnesota, the Twins are an institution. In Seattle, the Mariners are an institution, one that's not successful, but still, they're an institution. The Yankees are an institution. The Dodgers, the Cubs, all down the list, even the worst franchises you can think of, they're key pieces of those communities. The Astros are no different than that. But I think to fix what's wrong with baseball, there's going to have to be this consolidation of finances in a way that makes sense and it's palatable for everybody. And that includes forcing the Pirates, the Reds, the Twins, the Marlins, I could go on for about 5 more teams, to spend a minimum amount and actually try to win baseball games.
Well, and I think, it comes down to that lesson we should have learned in Ted Lasso, that we don't own these teams. We're caretakers of these teams, and that the fans own the teams. But I think baseball owners more than any other. As we get ready to wrap up,
I would sell the franchise to Rebecca Welton if I had that opportunity. Is that a thing we can do?
I'd like to be her manslave.
You need a ladder.
Do we have? I would definitely need a ladder and a ladder and a lot of hope. I got some rapid fire questions for you guys as we get ready to wrap this thing up. Okay. Yes or no, Michael? Jake Myers is home shopping before Christmas.
Oh, yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Before Christmas. Okay. Yes or no, Michael? Astros end up picking in the top 5 in the draft after the draft lottery happens.
I hope so. I don't know.
Andy?
Yes.
This year, no.
No. Okay. And then
0.34% chance of having the number 1 pick. It doesn't get much better from there.
No. Can we do that thing like where you like how the Spurs used to? You always thought the Spurs cheated in the NBA, like waiting down the draft thing or something. I don't know. I don't know. You cheat on that.
Tanking. What you're talking about is tanking, and yes, that's a thing in the NBA.
I don't want to do that again. And then I guess last but not least, going into spring training, Michael, yes or no? Do you think the top 3 slots in the rotation are set?
No.
No, Andy?
Yes, because I think number 3 there is somehow Justin Verlander, and I do believe that there will be a trade made for a top of the order starter, not an ace, but a solid 2/3 type.
Yeah. One of the trade. Okay, and then again before we go, Michael, is there anybody on the roster that we're not talking about yet that you think is trade bait? Like I think Brian Abreu could be traded.
I think that's a possibility. I think, I think we've mentioned all the big ones. Yainer Diaz would be another one, but they'd have to figure out what they're doing. But I think that's really about it. Is really in I hope not Paredes, but he's also possible.
Andy?
It's really inconsistent because you should be as flexible as possible if you're Dana Brown, but then you make public statements that, that Christian Walker is not on the trade block. Why? Why would you limit your negotiation power? I mean, it's very inconsistent to me what Dana Brown says in public versus what I assume he says in private, but then the things that come out that conflict either one of those things. Christian Walker absolutely should be on the trade block. We don't have a need for his skill set right now. Not because he had a bad 2025, but because we've got some duplication and we need some roster flexibility. And if you can get out of under some of that contract and have a place for Paredes to play, that's a great thing. But then to publicly state he's not being traded, the only thing I can think of is you try not to scare off other free agents because Christian Walker did choose to play for the Astros. And you're telling all the other free agents, you might be here a year and then we're dealing you because this is just how life works. But that's not different than any other franchise. It's just weird to me what Brown plays close to his vest and what he just kind of regurgitates out to the press.
The Astros problems with public relations continue. That's one thing. Before we go, Michael,
I hate Caroline Leavitt. I mean, but the Astros need somebody like that just to go out and say, "No, shut up! You don't know what you're talking about."
No Hitler Barbie for this team, though. Please and thank you, Michael. Actually, multi overtime winner, award-winning filmmaker. I get to ask that famous question of, all right, what's next? I know you've gotten hard not to be romantic about time travel is making its rounds. When is it playing next? And then would you have another film planned after that?
It is playing at another Hole in the Head film festival this December in San Francisco, and not sure where we're going after that, but we've got some stuff lined up for next year. I don't know what I'm making after that right now. I'm working on the feature version of It's Hard Not to Be Romantic About Time Travel. And then we'll see where we go next year.
Yeah, and we obviously will have it at ARF opening night. So that'll be a lot of fun. All right. Well, guys, that's going to wrap us up. Thanks, Michael, so much for jumping on and joining us. For Andy, I'm Jim. We're going to be back on Friday to do our deep dive on how we're going to fix the college football playoff. Until then, also, I'd like to say one more time, fuck the Dallas Cowboys for giving me hope and then pulling it out from underneath me. It's an abusive relationship. And with that, I say goodbye and hello to Dandy Don Meredith.
Turn out the lights. The party's over. They say that all good things must end. Call it.